We're talking with Billy Proctor, and not the Billy Proctor who is the famous rugby player in New Zealand. No, this is the Billy Proctor who is a director at the Big Ten Network, has been able to put together a really inspiring career in sports media, and he is on the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. I'm on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. An opportunity here to look at Billy's career, what makes it inspirational, and tell some cool stories in his rise to where he is today. Billy, obviously, I appreciate you doing this, and I see a couple Emmys behind you, and I know the imprint you have had on this business because of that evidence of some of those Emmys. And you being the son of Mel Proctor, and people know Mel as a very well-known sportscaster, worked, with the Padres and with the Orioles and the Nationals and the Rangers, and has been a network sportscaster. How much pressure was there from you, or from him, I should say, as you were taking your own lead in the business to either match or surpass what he's done in dealing with that, knowing that your dad was in the business too?
Not really any pressure, to be honest with you. My dad and I are best friends, and he kind of wanted me to do whatever I wanted to do. I knew that if I couldn't become a professional athlete, I wanted to be involved in sports television in some capacity, whether that was in front of the camera or behind the scenes. I was fortunate enough to get an intern out of college in 2004 at Fox Sports in Los Angeles as a production assistant, and I kind of was digging the behind the scenes gig, and got hired on by them. Worked at Fox Sports for 3 years, and in 2007, Fox in the Big Ten Conference, they launched the Big Ten Network. I was fortunate, enough to land a gig with Big Ten Network here in Chicago, and kind of noticed that I just wanted to do the behind the scenes gig, whether that was producing or directing. From there, I went to Turner in Atlanta for 7 years, and then now back here at Big Ten in my fifth season. But not really any pressure. I mean, he helped me get my foot in the door. Now there's a lot more opportunity, I think, for people to get their foot in the door, because a lot of universities have their own video departments. Pretty much every conference has a network. So if you go to those schools, you get the opportunity to get involved with their television production department. Back when I was in school, we really didn't have that. But he definitely helped me get my foot in the door. And as you know, in this business, it's about people who you know. So
he has been somebody who certainly you've gained a lot of inspiration from, and he's taught you a lot. How, though, do you differ in your viewpoints on the business? And certainly you come from different perspectives, him working more in front of the camera, you behind. But as much as you've taken from your dad, where do you think that some of your perspective and your philosophies about the business are a little bit different?
So as a play-by-play announcer like my dad, his job was to pretty much obviously narrate the story. Okay. My job behind the scenes as a director is to help tell the story with pictures, so, directing is not only watching, but you have to be a very good listener. You have to anticipate where your announcers are going to go. If they're going to talk about a certain player, you have to anticipate, you have to let that camera know, hey, we're getting ready to talk about 53 White, and then you need another camera to tell the secondary story. So it's, my biggest thing was listening. Obviously, I grew up watching sports all the time, and I still watch sports to this day, obviously. And I find myself critiquing a lot when I'm watching other productions, like, oh, why did they do that? Or why didn't they do this? And I'll learn a lot from other directors, as well, when they're cutting games, but no, it's been a fun ride. And, I look forward to many more years in this business. So
When you think of your tenants as to these are the Billy Proctor ideals of putting on a good broadcast, and like you said, looking at others and saying, okay, I wouldn't do that, I would do that. What for you are paramount for you as far as allowing people to see what you're all about as a broadcaster? If there were like a five or a group of ideals of rules that Billy Proctor prescribes to when he's the director in the production booth, what are they?
the first rule is making sure that we're all on the same page, obviously, because one of the reasons I'm in this business is because it was the closest thing to being a part of a professional team, because I love playing sports growing up. So I figure, when you're in the truck or the control room, obviously you're part of the team, because I can't do this job by myself. I have to rely on the producer. I have to rely on my camera operators, audio personnel, production assistants, associate producers, associate directors. If we're all doing our duties and following instructions, that's the biggest thing. It's communication. Try not to get ahead of yourselves. That's another thing. Just kind of take a deep breath, take a step back. I mean, obviously a lot of things might seem overwhelming, especially in live television. But if you make a mistake, another thing I like to say is, hey, don't dwell on the mistake. Like I tell my technical directors, they're sitting in front of a huge board with all these switches, and I'm like, listen, this thing doesn't have autocorrect. Okay, if you make a mistake, don't dwell on it, because we're going to miss the next play, or we're going to miss the next replay. So just kind of forget about it, move on. I like to think less is more a lot of times. A lot of our telecasts, we have the ability, and we definitely have the the tools to have all these cool elements that we get in, whether they're transitions, graphics, music, anything of that nature. We don't want to get in the way of the telecast. Like my main thing is, do not get in the way of the game. We can sprinkle in those things on dead balls, on stoppages of play, on timeouts, but we want to deliver to the viewer. Less is more. We want to keep it clean, put a good product on the air.
What do you think you do different than perhaps any other director in sports television?
Different. Let's see.
Or unique or creatively, that you're able to show more about who you are, so that somebody who watches would say, that's Billy Proctor. That's definitely Billy Proctor running the truck there.
I like I said, we don't want to get in the way of the game, but if if an announcer is telling a story during the game, and I have a chance to cut in a quick shot of whoever they're telling the story of, so it depends on, you have to know the teams that are playing. For instance, for basketball, okay, if you have a team that's running up and down the court, you don't have time to cut when you're on that main game camera. Okay, if a team is walking the ball up the court slowly, okay, and the announcers are telling the story about somebody that's injured on the bench, or about a mom or a dad that's in the crowd, okay, I might try to sneak in a shot of that person that they're telling the story of. Okay, but you have to know the teams. If the defense is pressing, you want to stay on camera one. But I like to try to support what they're talking about, whether it's coming out of a break with a split screen, they're talking two people, I can show both subjects on the screen at the same time. Something in that sort of nature. So
what do you think separates yourself as far as a good listener? You talked about this before, and how important it is to be a good listener in the truck, because so many things are happening. Communication is critical in the middle of a broadcast. But how have you been able to really improve on that listening muscle? And how have you seen that improve yourself as a director?
you kind of have to filter out who you're listening to, obviously. I mean, you're listening to the announcers, you're listening to your camera operators, you're listening to the producer, you're listening to the tape room selling replays, your associate director, your associate producer. We do a lot of remote productions at Big Ten Network, meaning we are not on site. We're in the control room in Chicago. So I'm relying on my camera crew out there to pretty much show me everything that's happening. I'm not on site. Okay, the majority of the time. For the bigger events we are, but you have to filter out who you're listening to. Obviously, we're telling a story, we're following a narrative, just filtering out, and obviously you always have to be listening out of that one ear, because you have the headset on one ear, you're listening out of the other ear, and you just, you can't miss any assignments. That's my main thing.
What are you like as a competitor? You played college basketball at Cal Lutheran, and certainly you went on to this great career, and you are having this great career in sports media, and competition is all around us. How would you view the way you could look back at your Cal Lutheran experience and you being a basketball player, as to say a little bit of you from college is still with you today?
I'm still competitive in this business. Whether it's trying to get resources that other networks have, or trying to change things, the way we do things on productions or telecasts. Like I said, I watch many different, networks to see what they do. What can we do better? what can we do differently. Obviously, there's budgets involved with these, personnel, but it could be something, maybe tweaking a camera angle, putting a camera in a different location, to help tell the story better. And then the cool thing at Big Ten, they let us try those things, especially during last year, during the COVID year, when we didn't have any fans, we were allowed to move cameras around, because we didn't
Ah,
get in the way of fans. So that was a really cool experience doing that. We had a lot more robotic cameras that we used, because they wanted to limit the amount of personnel on site and in the stadium near the fans. So we got a chance to work with a lot of robotic cameras, sky cameras. But yeah, just tweaking what we do and how we cover the event.
Billy Proctor's with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. Billy, of course, with Big Ten Network. I'm with Fox Sports Radio. So if there was a camera, let's just say, on you when you took that internship at Fox, and you were looking back at those days, and there's a wide-eyed Billy Proctor walking into the building, what sort of characteristics and traits would you have? And if I met you then, I would have picked up on that, would have suggested to me that one day what you're doing now, it would be a no-brainer that you would get there.
Um, I came in very excited about the opportunity and very open. When you come into sports production, there's such a wide array of things you can do. Whether it's on the graphic side, whether it's on the music side, whether it's on the video side, and obviously it was a behind the scenes internship. I got got the chance to work with a lot of different people behind the scenes and a lot of different announcers and whatnot, work a lot of different sports. And it was just kind of taking that all in, and just, sitting back and realizing, wow, like, I'm doing this for a living right now. Like, this still beats working. You know what I mean? But I realized I wanted to become a director because I wanted to support what the announcers were talking about. The producers they narrate the story, they work on the rundowns, they work with the announcers on the different storylines. My job is to give you that, that on the second, cut and storytelling, as basically I'm painting the picture for you guys, and I love doing that. And it's not only me doing that. Like I said, it's my camera operators doing that. It's everybody else in the control room or truck doing that. And I'm just fortunate that I got a chance to kind of work my way up and learn from a lot of different people. I love directing everything. I mean, if you want me to, I'll go out and direct traffic right now.
Wow. Now, where did that come from? That desire to direct, as far as not just, like you said, in front of television, but how are you wired that way?
I don't know. I mean, it's just like in this business, you have to have a certain type of commitment and passion and desire. It's not your normal 9 to 5 gig. Obviously, we work weekends and holidays. What do people do during the weekends and holidays? They watch sports, right? So I take that as an opportunity to deliver a great product on air. And like I said, if you love sports, I think this is definitely the business for you. You don't want to get caught watching it, though. Like, that's a lesson I've learned, because if you get like you get caught watching a game, you're going to forget, you know what I mean? Like, you have to stay focused. A lot of the times I'll come out of the game, I know who won, but I won't know, stats on a certain player or whatnot, because we have so many things going on. I mean, I'll know who the high scorer is, but I won't know, I won't be able to deliver you their direct numbers of the game. That's for our graphics department. So
How much time after a game do you think about that past game? And then when do you mentally move on to your next game?
pretty much when a game is over, whether I'm traveling home or driving home, I'll think about it. And then what I'll do later that night is I'll try to watch the majority of the game, if not the whole game.
Wow.
Especially if I'm, because when I go back and watch my games, I learn things, and a lot of the times our highlights, are all over different media platforms, so I'll get a chance to watch those. So I'll watch the game that night or early the next morning, and then if I have a game that next day, obviously you got to kind of push that game behind you, and you got to focus on the next game. But what can you do from that previous game to learn on this next opportunity that you have on this day? So
Billy Proctor's with us. I'm Bryan Fenley. So obviously what you said before, to take your term and phrase, you're painting a picture. So in a sense, you're an artist. You've done so many games of so many different sports, and have a couple, and what are they, games stood out to you as to you feeling like you best expressed that artistic gene of painting the picture, like you canvassed it in the best way? Because we all are our harshest critics, but if there were games that you can remember that you were a part of where you felt like this is the best expression of me as an artist, as a director, what would those be?
last year's Big Ten basketball tournament was at Lucas Oil Stadium. Obviously, they had limited amount of fans there, but like I explained to you earlier in the interview, we had many different cameras, a lot of robotic cameras. The game was between Michigan and Maryland, and Michigan's head coach Juwan Howard and Maryland's head coach at the time, Mark Turgeon. They got into a little argument. We were getting ready to go to commercial break, and we did go to commercial break. But during that break, I was still line cutting, like we were
Ah,
still on air, what was going on between the two teams. Both benches cleared. There were no punches thrown, but I was cutting it like it was happening, even though we were in commercial break. So we rolled that out of break. We told the story, what happened. It was a great, it was a great sequence that we had. Last year as well, I directed Michigan Rutgers 3 overtime football game at Rutgers. There were no fans in the stands, unfortunately, but we relied everything, just showing the emotion and passion of all the players on the field and how physically tired they were during that 3 overtime game. That I thought that was another great show that we put together.
what I'm gathering here, you're a great listener, and clearly you have a great memory as you're telling these stories of games prior. What is one of the best compliments of your work you've received from a superior?
Um, my demeanor in the control room of the truck, you know, um, you know, I don't like to talk down on people. I'm not I stay pretty even keel. I'm not a yeller. I'm not a screamer. And nothing against the people that do that, but I came up in this business and I have worked for people that do that. But I feel that does not help anybody, because that, if you're the leader in the truck in the control room, that's going to trickle down and you're going to set a tone. So you want to go in there, you want to be confident. Okay. You want to be ready to go. And, you want to be a great communicator.
Billy, you've done all those things. I am in awe of what you've been able to do. And there's so much more in front of you as well. And I can't wait to see everything that matriculates for you. Billy Proctor, director of Big Ten Network, started as an intern at Fox Sports, played basketball at Cal Lutheran, and now he is covering basketball as a director and working in so many capacities with one of the best conference networks in the country. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. Billy, thanks so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Bryan, I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.